Good afternoon. Is everyone ready to get started?
Yes, sir.
All right. My name is Brian Manley. I'm the Chief of Staff for the Austin Police Department, and we're going to give an update on the officer-involved shooting that happened late last night into early this morning, give an overview of some of the information we provided you last night, and then fill in additional information that we've learned to this point. On February 7th, 2015 at 10:33 p.m., Austin police officers were dispatched to a shots fired call in the 8200 block of Pax Drive. The Austin Police Department's helicopter, Air 1, was on duty and dispatched to the call at 10:52 p.m. The description of the person shooting was a white male in his 20s, approximately 6 feet tall. Once officers arrived on scene, they reported hearing several shots being fired. Officers were waiting for Air 1 to arrive on scene in order to obtain a visual on the suspect from the air. When Air 1 arrived on scene, officers on the ground could hear more gunfire near their location and began to take cover. The tactical flight officer inside Air 1 observed the suspect appearing to shoot his weapon in the direction of the patrol officers that had responded to the scene. APD patrol officers approached the location on foot and also saw the suspect carrying a rifle, pointing that rifle up in the air at the direction of Air 1, which was hovering overhead. The tactical flight officer inside Air 1 continued watching the male and saw him kneel down beside a boat that was located in the driveway next to an SUV. The suspect appeared to use the boat as a support base while again taking aim at Air 1 overhead with a long rifle. The tactical flight officer stated multiple shots were being fired at the APD helicopter in which he and the pilot were operating. The APD SWAT team was asked to respond to the scene and arrived. Upon their arrival, the officers deployed at approximately 11:58 p.m. A SWAT officer observed the suspect carrying a long rifle at this time. SWAT officers heard from the tactical flight officer in the helicopter that the suspect was shooting at the helicopter. The SWAT officers formed a team that moved up into a position to make contact with the suspect at this time. As they got into position, they were able to observe the suspect in the driveway where he had been on and off throughout this occurrence. Assigned as a position to observe the suspect, and while observing the suspect, observed him go back down into a prone position, taking a long rifle, aiming it up in the direction of Air 1 overhead, and believing that he was about to again fire at Air 1, putting the lives of the officers inside Air 1 in an immediate danger. He fired one shot, and that shot struck the suspect in this case and fatally wounded him. At that, the SWAT team then approached and secured that suspect where he lay on the ground, and then put together a plan to address future threat that may be inside that home. At this point, we did not know if there were other threats inside the home, other individuals inside the home. You all have been out on these calls. It takes a long time when we try and secure a residence after we've threats. To identify whether there were any other threats inside, putting together a deliberate tactical entry into that home to ensure that there were no other threats. From a neighbor that there were two young children at home. So we were concerned about children, whether they had this event or during. So instead of approaching as we normally would in a very deliberate and the into the home, and children asleep in their beds. For victim service, take those children to locate a number that we could turn those children over to. So, a synopsis of the incident, go into some specific time points that occurred, and then I will also the use of the 911 system, the reverse 911 system that we did to put warning. I will identify the name of the case. White male, Flatch, W-Y-E, Flatch, F-L-A-C-H-E, a white male, date of birth of 1986, The involved was Officer Luke. Officer Serrato is a 7-year veteran of the Austin Police Department and has served on the police SWAT team for 3 years now. So to go more in depth on the timeline, we received the initial call at 10:33 p.m. reporting there was a white male outside shooting a rifle at street lamps. Officers were dispatched at 10:35. We knew that Air 1 was on duty, and so Air 1 was dispatched at 10:52 and hold subject so we could make an approach. Additional calls came in reporting that the male was now in the street, had the rifle in his lap, and the caller advised that he had multiple weapons. At 11 o'clock, police staging point. Then at 11:16, we reported multiple fired. And at this point, we were also advised at 11:18 from Air 1, the helicopter orbiting above, that they were taking active fire from the suspect on the ground. Between that time and 11:51, while monitoring the subject, he was walking around. He would go into the garage. He would come outside. At points, he had the weapons in his hands. And then at 11:51, we had a report from an on-scene sergeant at that point identifying additional shots had been fired by the suspect. At 11:53, we had a report that the suspect was again actively engaging Air 1 with gunfire. At 11:56, Air 1 was able to observe that the individual was actually reloading his rifle at this point. At 11:59 is when the SWAT team, as mentioned earlier, was able to move up and take. 9 a.m. is when we got the report. As mentioned earlier, that's the point we got information that there may be children inside the residence, so we put together a team to go in and secure those children. Throughout this incident, we utilized the city's reverse 911 system in an attempt to inform the neighbors of what was going on and to do everything we could do to ensure their safety throughout this incident. There were 3 different calls that went out. The first call through the reverse 911 system stated that this is the Austin Police Department call working in your Coon Run and Pax Drive. There is a citizen safety issue at hand. If you would stay inside your residence for the time being until a new call has been received stating that the area is safe. Thank you. We then put out a second reverse 911 call stating this is the Austin Police Department. The Austin Police Department is still conducting an investigation into the call that is occurring in your area at Raccoon Run and Pax Drive. This message is to advise you to please stay indoors, stay secure and sheltered inside your residence until the all clear has been given by the Austin Police Department. Thank you. And then finally, another reverse 911 call went out stating that this is the Austin Police Department with an update to the call working in your area at Raccoon Run and Pax Drive. The area is secured. It is now safe to move around outside your residence and travel at your leisure. However, do not approach the cordoned area of the crime scene. Thank you. These 911 calls were sent to 41 residents in the immediate area where this incident was occurring, and we received a success between 23 and 28 actual people that successfully received those calls. So again, this was an effort to keep the neighborhood informed of the dangers, keep everyone sheltered in place as this incident was occurring. As we say in all of these incidents, and we believe is true, all loss of life is tragic, and this is a loss for Mr. Flatch's family, and our hearts go out to them in this difficult time. And at this point, I'll open it up to any questions you may have.
Do you have any reason to suspect that the 2 children inside that home were his children, relatives, immediate family?
We're working on establishing the relationship between those 2 children. Initial reports are that they were a boy and a girl, and initially reported at 4 years old and 6 years old, but we're working to confirm that along with the relationships to the suspect.
Did the helicopter actually get damaged?
Yes. Yes, the helicopter did in fact take damage during this incident. The helicopter is showing that the rotor blades were struck, along with the cowling underneath the helicopter appeared to have been struck by gunfire during this incident.
Did the pilot have any hard trouble landing?
No,
afterwards?
they were able to safely land back at Bergstrom Air Force Base, and it's also important to note that from the moment Air One got on scene, they were running video, and they ran video through this entire event. So we do have video that shows the actions of the suspect in this case, including the multiple shots that were fired, the shots that were fired at the helicopter, and then in the end, the movements of the SWAT team to engage the suspect.
Will you be releasing that at any point?
We will be looking at that this week, and that will be released once we get our investigation complete.
Was anybody in custody?
No, there was nobody else taken into custody during this incident.
Some of the neighbors had said that Mr. Flatch was very depressed, having problems with his wife. Do you believe that this was a suicide?
We're looking into the motives. At this point, we're not ready to speculate on why he may have engaged in the activity that he did last night.
Was there any attempt made to negotiate with him?
We were not given an opportunity to really establish contact. When we got teams that were close enough to establish contact to communicate with him, that's when he was observed in the act of engaging the helicopter again in an attempt to fire at it.
How many weapons did he have in his possession during this time?
That's still part of the ongoing investigation.
How many times was the helicopter shot?
Don't know how many times. I know it's showing that it's been hit on the rotor blades as long as the cowling, but to know exactly how many shots, I don't have that information.
And there's a shotgun?
There were multiple weapons that were used.
How many can you tell us?
That's part of the investigation. I can just tell you that there were multiple weapons that he used.
So more than just a rifle?
There were more weapons present at this incident, yes.
How far in the air was Air One when the suspect was shooting off these weapons?
I don't know what their initial height was when they started taking the initial rounds. I do know that they moved to a higher orbit once the suspect began firing at them.
At any point while you were engaged with the suspect, did he appear drunk or on anything? I mean, I know that's...
Yeah, that would be speculative. We wouldn't have any information on that.
Was he saying anything? Was he screaming anything?
Yeah, I don't have any information on whether he was screaming at the officers.
And you said the relationship with the kids, the neighbors said that they're his kids, but y'all haven't worked
Right.
with.
They may be his kids, but that's to be confirmed.
There were no other adults in the home.
There were no other adults in the home. It was just the suspect, and then when officers made entry, they found the two children.
Was the helicopter hit when it was in a higher orbit?
That is unknown.
Can you talk at all about, over this past week alone even, you've had several situations where you call in the SWAT team. I think we talked at the end of last week about how that's taxing on the department. How is this affecting you all just in your response, whether or not it's, a burden, or are you learning from it? Kind of what's the overall feel right now? It's been a lot of these kinds of situations.
Sure. We have had several SWAT calls this past week. I believe there were 4 in a very short duration, with a few of the SWAT calls lasting an extended period of time. So as you can imagine, this is very difficult for our SWAT team. They have to wear a lot of gear in very difficult circumstances, and so it does take a toll on these officers. These officers are conditioned for this type of work, but it still takes a toll. We're fortunate that the tactical teams in our region work very closely together and support each other. And if one of the tactical teams is down due to an extended deployment and needs some time to rehab, then the other teams step in and fill in. And so as a region, we still have the same level of security that we've got at any time. But you are correct, these incidents are very taxing on a team like this.
Is it just, it happened to be that there were four SWAT standoffs calls this week, or do you all have any reason as to why this might be happening? Is it unusual to see such an uptick?
Sure. Well, this is definitely a higher frequency of SWAT calls in a short period of time than we experience. However, each one is an independent occurrence, not related to the others, and it's just the way they've happened in the past week.
What are the requirements for calling out the SWAT team? What do you guys look for? What says we're bringing the SWAT, we're not?
Sure. It's basically the threat level. If we have a subject that's barricaded inside a home, it's safer to bring in a SWAT team. If we have an individual, as last night, an active shooter in a neighborhood, that's a call for a SWAT team. The SWAT team brings in resources, assets, and capabilities that the not have the time to maintain, and so bringing in a team like this brings in the ability to have special equipment, tactics, training, and all of that. So that's why we bring in a tactical team to these type of operations.
Do you have the age of the children?
I believe they were 4 and 6, but that's not confirmed yet.
Do you know
long
if
was
Flash
the-
had, sorry, Do you know if Flash had any previous criminal history?
That'll be part of the ongoing investigation. We're not going to release any of his previous history today, if there is any.
Were any of the
How long was he
weapons in?
How long was he out there shooting at the lights before y'all showed up?
The initial call came in at 10:33. And first unit was dispatched at 10:35, and the first unit that shows arrival is 10:51.
One of the street lamps that you can see bullet holes in the neighborhood is somewhat further down the street from the house. Is it clear at this point whether he was walking around firing off the gun before he returned to the driveway?
Yes, we believe that he was walking around and firing the gun. We believe he was an active shooter moving around.
Okay.
Do you have any reason to suspect that he was just trying to shoot at inanimate objects, or was he maybe trying to shoot into homes, shoot at people?
We can't speculate what his motives were and what he was trying to shoot at, other than we know that he was directly attempting to engage the helicopter. Our SWAT officer that finally got in a position and ended up taking the shot said that he was tracking Air 1 as it flew through the sky. He could see him tracking it with his rifle. So he was actively engaged in trying to shoot the helicopter.
How much
Two
in
more
danger
questions.
was the pilots in there? I mean, is there the bottom bulletproof, or how much in danger were the pilots in that helicopter?
Sure. Well, we won't go into the safety features of the helicopter itself, but obviously anytime you're flying a helicopter and taking rounds like that, not only is it a distraction, but it's a threat.
Are there any lessons to be learned from the number of SWAT calls that you guys have had to deal with in such a short period of time?
I don't know about lessons to be learned. Austin is a growing city. We're the 11th largest city in the country, and our department stands ready to keep the citizens of Austin as safe as possible in whatever circumstances. And so we maintain a team like this that has the training, the capabilities to, our goal is always to resolve them peacefully, but we're not always given that option.
Last question.
How sophisticated were his weapons? Is there any indication that he was planning this, stockpiling weapons, that sort of thing?
Don't have any indication that he was stockpiling. Again, that'll be part of the ongoing investigation. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.